was held in an institution for the mentally distressed over several years.
Do we have to?
Yeah, while in there, I met a fellow from the census office. Unhinged, but still must have been mouths. He estimated my personal wealth, which goes back to Doomsday Book, would provide the nation a regular, nourishing diet. But I haven't done anything about it yet. I know what I must do, but I haven't done it. That is disloyal. Have you been comfortable here, Mr. Herbert?
It's been good fun. A lot of people have called in for a chin wag. Some have shared their problems.
Have you had enough by now?
I'll be going back home soon.
Good. Because I'm the Earl, and this is the only part of my property I'm keeping to live in myself.
Darling, is this really such a good idea?
Once the festival is over, we move in.
There's no running water.
How did you manage, Mr. Herbert?
I went down to the lake with a bucket.
We'll do the same. As a child, it was here I hid from my father, and he hid from his father, and so on. Oh, Daddy, at last I found you. What is it? I'm busy.
Some government officials have arrived and insist on speaking to you.
Tell them to leave me alone, you noodle.
These pamphlets you've left around need to be explained.
They are clearly written and self-explanatory.
It sounds as though you might be in very hot water. They say you can't be allowed to destabilize the country.
What pamphlets?
These.
Let me see.
Daddy, why do you want to give away my inheritance?
We'll never have equality while there's inheritance.
Darling, we must get out of here. Tim, tell them you just couldn't find your father.
You inherited, Daddy. Why shouldn't I?
All I inherited was madness and 1,000 years of trash. So I have issued instructions to dispose of all my assets, livestock, stores and machinery, and to open the house to the homeless and those without work.
Darling.
Nothing would change in John Bull's overfed empire for the few without shifts towards the interest of the common man.
Oh, really?
That is what is going to happen, and nothing can stop it.
And Hugh says the old Earl's been ousted from his title. I didn't know they could do that.
They can. All land ultimately belongs to the Crown.
I treasure my copy of his pamphlet. It made the festival worthwhile. True politics is an abidingly pure, inalienable love of the people, creating benefits at every level. Where did he get that from?
Search me. Don't leave it lying around. How could the old boy be so simple-minded? The people are unlovable.
What will they do with him?
We're back in the nut house where he belongs.
He did deserve it once, but not now. Not now, when he really wanted to make things better for everyone.
Well, they might eliminate him.
How can you say such a thing?
I'm only joking.
You've got very hard-hearted.
Have I? I'm sorry.
Are you really? If you're not careful, Gregory, continuing to love you may be beyond me. No, don't touch me.
Hold on, Sarah, please. I wasn't thinking what I was saying, Sarah. I want you and the baby here. Sarah, please don't go back to Hugh. Sarah, I need you. Sarah!
Good of you to see me, Mr. Clan. Our mutual friend Hugh says asylums know everything. He suggested I approach you in case you have any clue regarding my father's whereabouts.
Well, asylums have to know it all, don't they? If you don't have an aberrant, you can't have a standard.
You have a point there.
I did hear your father has been made Governor-General of an island, albeit a very small island.
That's not too bad.
It's in the South Atlantic.
Well, it's good to know he's alive.
The island's made of guano.
Really?
You know, the excrement of seabirds.
Oh.
That's what the ruling class think of your father's ideas. Sorry, I'm teasing. I've no news for you. Nothing. The reception you got in the House of Lords for your maiden speech was unforgivable, I thought.
I hardly said a couple of words before they shouted me down.
Who was the idiot in some distant past who said, "Give all away and follow me"? Your silent but son, as your father wanted to, did give it all away.
Such questions hang over us from Sunday school.
You know, Marjorie managed to skip the country. She's in Syria writing a book about beans. I've had a letter from her.
I blame her for most of our trouble. Did she mention my father?
The letter was all about your father. She fears the worst.
She wouldn't dare.
You're the Earl now. You got what you wanted. The gamble came off. McCabe at the clinic. Remember him?
Who?
Where you were drying out. People are always in and out of that clinic. Although McCabe doesn't have a drink problem. Oh no, he's in Home Office, roving, undercover, roving. Anti-sedition is his game. He was waiting for you to alive so he could befriend you. It was McCabe who dreamed up the poetry festival for you, wasn't he?
You're in your dotage.
It was supposed to be a school for egalitarian democracy, but it all went wrong. Not that you mind. Look at you now. Everything's fallen into your
I
lap.
must go. I'll find my father somewhere. When I hold another festival and invite you along, you'll come, I hope.
To be humiliated again? Not likely.
I was very moved by the reading you gave that day. It was brave, manly, and honest. Anyway, thanks for your help. I must be on my way.
By the way, while you're wandering around like a fart in a thunderstorm looking for your dad, ask yourself what loyalty means.
I know what loyalty means.
Ah, strength or weakness, virtue or curse.
It's the sticking point.
Now I'm back and I've decided to make my base here.
Oh,
How do you think we're going to run along? Be honest.
with your ambition and my self-neglect, you will take over and I will go under.
I'd like some returns.
Oh, what does it matter? Why didn't you take my father abroad for some sun when they let him out from his imprisonment in the Exchequer basement?
After 6 months studying medieval pipe rolls, he was very weak. Downing Street and the Prime Minister thought it best he come home, where he could be properly looked after.
He was a wreck, nearly blind, having nightmares about pounds, pence, shillings and groats.
No one ever told him your family's wealth went back to Saxon times. Your huge family fortune, made from the dissolution of the monasteries, was Chinese to him, as was the millions paid in compensation for the loss of his slave plantations.
Well, no one ever told me either.
The pamphlet he put together was a complete mess.
Why didn't you stop him?
I didn't even know he'd written it.
I find that hard to believe.
He went to a printer and had it done all by himself. It's like a schoolboy's exercise book. Quotes from my grandfather jumbled up with his own notes. The idea of population is controlled by famine, war and disease, and the world incapable of feeding itself did the real damage. He felt responsible. He got so guilt-ridden and upset, he ended up believing he should create utopia overnight.
Are we going to Utopia overnight? I'm all for it. Oh, this is near South France.
Would you like your wheelchair?
What are you two up to?
Having a peace conference.
Oh, there has to be war, so the working class can be kept within limits.
The Reverend Malthus still haunts you, doesn't he, Daddy?
Who?
Malthus.
Ah, him. What a mind. He got it right. It says, on the principle of population, one day he'll be remembered.
He's not read anymore. His notions have been discredited, haven't they, Marjorie?
Not entirely.
Here, help me off with my shirt.
Dressing
Do you like my tattoos, Tim?
Good God. He's got writing all over his arms and chest.
Ah, read and learn. Start here on my right nipple.
Why did you have this done, Daddy?
After I tried to hang myself in the coach house, Marjorie thought something positive had to come of it.
To have truth inscribed on him always.
So you sleep with this every night, Marjorie?
Bedtime reading, isn't it, darling? Now, starting here at the right nipple. In all societies, including those that are most vicious,
The urge to procreate is so strong, there is a constant increase in population
this subjects the lower classes to
and
distress.
prevents amelioration of their condition.
Tim, darling, your condition is so serious. If you die before your father, which now seems likely, who will be the legitimate 46th Earl of Leighton Mar?
Daddy will if you win your appeal. If you don't, the title will become extinct and everything revert to the crown.
When I left England after the poetry festival debacle, I was 3 months pregnant.
No. Was it Daddy?
I'll ignore that. A son was born in Damascus. I named him Robin.
Robin, born in Damascus. Am I deeper in the dumps or cheered up? I'm so slow on self-analysis now.
Your little brother, Robin,
Half-brother. Where is he now?
in a safe place, not in England. So there is an heir. Your blessing would make me feel
The
better.
blessing is out of the question, but I'll be deceased quite soon, possibly after lunch and out of your way altogether. Tell me, Marjorie, before you go, if he was alive, how do you think the Reverend Malthus would judge his granddaughter?
As a woman who's made her way in the world, he might be proud of me. I have his blood in my veins. My mother was his illegitimate child.
You don't say. Did he acknowledge her?
In a vague, distant way. Out of his pittance, he helped out financially until she got married. She never wanted to embarrass him.
That was very decent of her.
My mother was a sweet, lovely woman. A very sweet and lovely woman.
How unusual for you to be sentimental. There's actually a tear in your eye. Don't carry on with your story if you're upsetting yourself.
My mother at 16 was a beauty in Surrey. Our garden supplied flowers for the local chapel in Albury. Her Malthus was curate. She changed the flowers regularly. One day he was waiting for her in the shed, where the compost bin was kept.
Ah, not holy ground. He'd thought it through.
In later writings, talking about population explosion, he says, "For all mankind, the early 20s is a time when temptation is better defined as compulsion." He couldn't resist her, poor man.
And you've become torchbearer for the old devil's ideas. Why haven't you used them as context for your own life? What about birth control, postponement of marriage, celibacy, moral restraint?
How to keep the human race thriving is my aim.
You'll succeed in doing this with one baby.
One very powerful baby.
Our relationship is nearly over, Marjorie. I haven't believed a word of what you've been saying.
It would be better if you did.
I can only guess at your family background, but I'm sure it's not intellectual. What you are really is a frustrated novelist.
How can I be frustrated when I'm a
And
success?
a whopping liar. No doubt you'll have a birth certificate issued by a bribed Syrian official proving Robin was conceived in England when, in fact, some gentleman in Damascus was responsible.
He's your father's child. The birth has been registered a second time in London.
You've done me a favour by keeping me single. Liar or not, cheat or not, you're the only female I've ever been drawn to. Perhaps I have a taste for female criminality.
There isn't time for you to prove anything to my detriment.
I quite liked the idea of sharing a woman, but not with Daddy.
He's a one-woman man, and that woman is me.
A last question before you go. And let's have one tiny truth for mercy's sake. Did you have a proper father? A man responsible for bringing you up?
He was an importer of parrots and died of citizen fever when I was 12.
Promise you won't come to the funeral.
You're so wrong about me, Tim. In spite of everything you've said, I still find you attractive.
You can't resist telling one final fib, can you?
Bye. Love you.
Love you.
Tim has died, which was sweet of him. The old Earl, as he's still called round here, often seems on his last legs. But there's an obstinate life force that keeps him twinkling. Until Robin inherits in 20 years or so, I'm keeping a guardian eye on the affairs of Leighton Mar. When my son comes into his own, the country is likely to be as unequal as it is today. What will my bonny little plutocrat do with all his power? Will he want to change things? Will he go mad like his ancestors? Was it sitting on mountains of money, saying yes, yes, and yes, that drove them mad? Hello, Gregory. I brought Robin down to see the beans I brought back from Syria while they're in flower. Robin, be good.
Our soil seems to suit them.
I was sorry to learn you lost your infant, Greg.
One has to be patient with what nature doles out.
How's your wife Sarah taking it?
Not well.
Is it true she's gone back to the hermit?
Looks that way. I haven't heard from her for a couple of months.
I hope she's not blaming you.
The way she puts it is... I sold out. And I didn't have to.
That's unfair. You were given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
She says we were happy. I should have said no to the poetry festival and stayed just a gardener.
Her gardener.
And our child's death has to be seen as punishment for placing little value on happiness and more on money.
Take no notice of her.
I miss her. And I miss Hugh. They're all the family I've got.
If she has a child by Hugh, will you accept it as in any way yours?
I think I must. It's what we believe in, or did once. That we could all live together as one family. And it troubles me to think they may have changed their minds.
My Robin might not survive. He's healthy enough, but I should have another child in case. In fact, it's imperative I have another. You heard we were visited by the Prime Minister, Lord Palmerston.
Yes, I did hear.
He officially informed us our appeal to have the old Earl reinstated has been rejected. But he was very positive about the family's future. It must go on, he said. It is essential the earldom of Mar goes on. I listened to everything Robin's father said to him.
Prime Minister, glad I lost the appeal. I was never any good at being an aristocrat. I'm also glad to have this chance to thank you firsthand for the crash course in British state economics you arranged for me in London when I was incarcerated in the basement of the Exchequer. I emerged from it appreciating, for the first time, the significant role my family had played in our country's worldwide success, and how this came about. Since Edward the Confessor, the Earls of Leighton Mar have chosen the right side to be on.
I really...
It has ended up with our bums in the butter. You may well smile. My father thought it a big joke as well. We were, he said, like the vicars of Bray. Do you know the song? Whatsoever king may reign, still I'll be the vicar of Bray, son. You're restless. Assure the Chancellor I'll continue to lend the government money as we always have, but the percentage has to go up. And the repayment of all outstanding debt to my family has to be made by the end of next month. Is this my way of getting my own back? You could look at it that way. And do tell your cabinet colleagues we approve the change of name to Liberal Party, rather than Whig, which is so old-fashioned. And the English are becoming less old-fashioned by the minute. Must go. Urgent matters. Good night. Travel well. And this is law I will maintain until my dying day, sir, that whatsoever king may reign, I will be the vicar of Bray, sir.
Lord Palmerston is a flirtatious old man. He still fancies himself. He paid me a lot of attention while he was here, but he's no use to me. Written off sexually, as is my husband, poor darling. Here's a thought. Would you consider giving me a child, Gregory? Maybe 2.
Robin shouldn't swear on the bimbo's like that. He's going to pull them down.
I guarantee total confidentiality. Your finances will be secure for the rest of your life.
Hey, boy! Don't do that! What's his name again?
Robin.
Robin, you devil! Come away from there! See how much male authority I have? A word from me and he does as he likes. What kind of father would I make?
I'd look after all the parenting.
And when I come across these offspring, my own flesh and blood, and look into their eyes...
See the human race, not yourself. I'll come down to your house next week when no one's around. You naughty boy. What will the bees think? In Trespass by David Powell, Robert Glenister was Lord Tim, Adrian Scarborough, John Clare, Claire Corbett, Marjorie, and Nigel Anthony, the Earl. Luke Nunn was Gregory, Hassan Dixon, Hugh, and Lucy Phelps, Sarah. The director was Martin Jenkins. Trespass was a peer production for BBC Radio 4.
BBC News at 3 o'clock. The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has called on Hamas to agree to a ceasefire in Gaza quickly to avoid what he called further catastrophe. In Gaza, large groups of people have been seen leaving the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis, which has been under siege for weeks. In a statement, Israel said its forces were not planning to evacuate patients and medical staff, and troops have been instructed to prioritise the safety of civilians, patients, medical workers and facilities there. Israel's Air Force has launched a wave of strikes on targets in southern Lebanon after a woman in northern Israel was killed by rocket fire from across the border. Reports say 3 people in Lebanon have been killed. Labour has insisted it will block people who are not fit to be MPs after 2 election candidates were suspended over offensive remarks they made about Israel at a meeting. The party's leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has been facing criticism for not immediately suspending Azhar Ali, who had been the Labour candidate in the Rochdale by-election at the end of this month. Lord Levy was was Tony Blair's personal envoy to the Middle East for 10 years. He says criticising Israel is not the same as being anti-Semitic.
I've been critical of things of the government of Israel, and I would absolutely hate to be considered an anti-Semite or anti-Semitic in any form as a very proud, observant Jew. So that's not the issue. The comments that were made by Ali and Jones were of a very different order and substance.
Food prices have seen their first monthly fall in 2 years. Official figures show the annual rate at which prices are rising remained at 4% in January. A petition to save a 550-year-old tree in Shrewsbury has attracted more than 100,000 signatures. The Darwin oak is due to be felled to make way for a new road, but campaigners say it's close to where Charles Darwin was born, and the naturalist would have almost certainly have known it well. BBC News.
This is BBC Radio 4, and now it's time for Moneybox Live with Felicity Hanna.
Hello. We are more than halfway through the working week, but where are you in your working life? And perhaps more importantly, where are your pension savings? Because the amount we need for simply a moderate retirement has gone up by £8,000 according to the latest research. And one think tank reckons the state pension age needs to rise to 71. So on this Valentine's Day Moneybox Live, we're asking that extremely romantic question: when will you retire?
75 according to my pension plan.
I want to retire at 60.
What age do you think you might be able to retire?
About 150.
Yeah, I think I'll probably be plugging away till I drop.
At what age? 35. And you need to start thinking about it right now and make your money works for you.
I'd love to say 55, but I've got a feeling it might be a bit longer than that.
Our reporter Emma Devlin asking the questions there. So what about you? Do you have big retirement dreams? Or are you wondering if finances will mean working to the very end? Maybe you do a physical job and you're worried about your ability to keep working. Maybe you love what you do and you want to keep doing it as long as possible. There is still time to join our big retirement discussion today. You can email us. It's moneybox@bbc.co.uk or tweet us. We are @moneybox. Now, the Monty Python star Eric Idle, who's 80, has been tweeting about this very issue. He said, "I have to work for my living. Not easy at this age." So do get in touch with your thoughts at any age. But before we meet today's experts, let's go to our first caller, Paul, who is working in his 70s. Paul, good afternoon.
Hello, Flip.
Many of us are looking forward to giving up work. It's not you, though, is it? Because you're Paul Lewis from Moneybox. The nation needs you to keep working.
Well, I don't know if the nation needs me to keep working. I think I probably need to keep working. You know, they do say if you love your job, you never do a day's work in your life. And that's a bit how I feel, because I love what I do, both broadcasting and writing. And I'm just very lucky. I'm immensely lucky. As long as I can stagger to a keyboard or a microphone, I can carry on working. And because I love it, and I suppose I do think it perhaps might be a bit useful to some people occasionally, I shall carry on.
Just occasionally, now and then. You must love it to work that many Saturdays. I mentioned that survey from the Pensions and Lifetime Saving Association. You looked at this on Saturday's programme, and it does show the cost of retirement is on the rise.
Well, it does, and I think most people were surprised by the amount it had gone up and the figures themselves. And it's done by a survey, and they ask this group of people what they think a minimum or a moderate or a comfortable retirement would be. You know, what holidays you'd have, what about a car, what about how much do you spend on presents for people, do you eat out, and all that kind of thing. And when they got all those results in and totted up the cost of them, they did come to these extraordinary figures. You know, for a single person, £43,100 a year to live a comfortable, a moderate life. And I just think they seem very high indeed.
They do seem very high, and actually quite a lot of people got in touch about that. After Saturday's programme, Peter emailed to say, "I'm a single retired person living alone in a house I own and get along very nicely on slightly more than half the amount the stats think I need for a comfortable life." And Paul, some of those numbers, they suggest that a couple needs just under £60,000 for a comfortable retirement. But there are loads of couples, including families with children, who live on less.
Well, there are indeed. I mean, I did say on Saturday, this is more than, you know, the average wage. So a lot of people are going to have very meagre retirements. And if you look at what you have to have saved to get that sort of income, including your state pension, it's in the hundreds of thousands, and that's just a dream for most people. So I really think they did seem very high. They have gone up year by year. They went up a lot last year, and they've gone up again this year. And I think people do think they're a bit high. And of course, many people find they can live on a lot less.
What about working later? Because somebody might look at you and think, okay, working into your 70s is clearly very good for your health. But what I was wondering is it that working is good for you? Or is it that only the healthy can keep working?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure my doctor would agree with you incidentally, but I certainly feel okay, and my work isn't that demanding physically, and you know, that's fortunate, I think, from my point of view. I think the thing I do know is that if you work very hard, maybe a difficult and stressful job, and then you suddenly stop at 65 or 66, then your health declines because you're not using your brain, you're not using your body, and I think it is important to do something a bit like what you did in work, or maybe something you didn't do in work, but something that keeps your brain and your body active. That does help you avoid the signs of aging. It's when you just slump down and think, oh, that's it, I can do what I like, oh, but I'm not quite sure what I want to do now. That's really when it's bad for your health, I think.
Paul, well, thank you very, very much. You're not just working into your 70s, you're working overtime now as well on Moneybox Live. Thank you so much.
Glad to do it.
Thank you. Listening to Paul, and joining me today to answer your questions are Helen Morrissey, Head of Retirement at the financial services company Hargreaves Lansdown, and also Dr. Emily Andrews, Deputy Director for Work at the Centre for Ageing Better charity. Good afternoon, both of you.
Afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us. Emily, research from the International Longevity Centre suggests retirement age or state pension age would need to go up to 71 by the year 2050. What would that mean for today's 30-somethings?
I mean, you know, it was a provocative proposal by the ILC. I think it was deliberately designed to provoke people, and it has done that, and none of that provocation has been positive as far as I can tell. And, you know, it's true, there are more people who are working past 65 into their 70s than there ever have been, and that's broadly speaking, a really positive story. But at the same time, most people have left work before they even reach the current state pension age of 66. So, you know, while people in their kind of 30s, 40s, you know, approaching retirement age can kind of feel comforted that there are growing opportunities for people to keep working, they're not for everyone, and they're not everywhere at the moment.
Thank you. Helen, those numbers from the PLSA I was just chatting about with Paul, they suggest a couple needs more than £22,000 a year for a minimum standard of living, more than £43,000 a year for a moderate standing, almost £60,000 to be comfortable. We've heard that those do seem very high numbers, but how much would you need in your pension pot to make that possible?
Yeah, so I mean, again, these are really kind of staggering numbers, and if we drill down into them, you know, that couple on the moderate retirement, the 43,000, they would be looking at needing pension pots of maybe up to £250,000 each in order to afford that. And then if we break that down to a single person, they probably need double that, you know, double that, 500,000 in order to get that moderate retirement. If we looked up to that comfortable standard, again, a couple around £450,000 each in order to get that, and again double for a single person. So it shows the difficulties, particularly for single people.
Is that assuming someone's using their pot to buy an annuity?
So basically they gave some ballpark figures for an annuity because they change depending on rates and what type of annuity you get. But I think that even if you were in income drawdown, you would probably be needing pension pots of around those top level figures too. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, let's hear from Dolores, who's 80. She's single and she was working until her early 70s.
I stopped working when I was 73, 74. I had to carry on working mainly for financial reasons, and because I wasn't particularly well off, and you have the assumption that retirement age is a long way away and the money is more important than now. So for whenever it was possible to opt out of paying into a professional pension, I did.
What was it like working up to 73, 74?
I was lucky. I was healthy, and I realised how important that is. I had a very understanding manager who was open to allowing me to reduce my hours.
When you were younger, what did you picture your pensionable years would look like?
If I'm honest, I don't think I thought about it much. I just assumed that I would get the state pension and that I would be perfectly fine. I just did not consider or think too hard about the whole